Hey, hey, hey. Happy Thursday. Come on in, pull up a chair. The Gaming Gang Dispatch is in the air. Howdy, gang, and welcome once again to the Duct Tape Studios. I'm Jeff McAleer, your host, here at the Gaming Gang Dispatch, brought to you by not only thegaminggang.com, of which I happen to be the founder and editor-in-chief, but also Roll for Combat and their Year of Titans Kickstarter, which we will talk about in just a bit. Well, welcome aboard, everybody. Tonight is Thursday, November 21st, 2024. This is live show number 1124. If you're not overly familiar with the show, let me point out, super casual around here. We just hang out talking about the latest in tabletop gaming news, and then I'll normally pontificate about a topic related to our hobby. Tonight, we're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to kick off a new series. We're going to do this on Thursday nights for the foreseeable future, as long as people enjoy it. And what we're going to be doing is we are actually going to be building an old school influenced fantasy role-playing game from the ground up. So we're going to build that from scratch. I've got some interesting ideas I want to float out there. And then once we have kind of created this monster, we're going to just unleash it on the world absolutely free. We'll see what happens. We will see what happens. Of course, when you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang Dispatch or the channel, then I was going to say, how would you be watching videos on the Dispatch? It's been a long day. That's all I can tell you. When you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to visit thegaminggang.com for all the latest in tabletop gaming news, reviews, and a whole lot more you are not going to find here on YouTube, including Sammy's review today. Yes, The Sunken Pyramid for Tales of the Valiant from Cobalt Press. Keep in mind, every day throughout November, I am aiming to share a brand new review with you. We've been doing pretty well. Lots of reviews out there. So if you have not checked that out, by all means, give that a quick read. And of course, because this is a live show, that means there is chat available. It's not on screen. It's one of the ways I keep some of the more unusual commenters at bay. And you must be a subscriber for at least 10 minutes before you can take part in chat. Yet another way I keep some of the more unusual commenters at bay. But if you check both those boxes and you want to say howdy, maybe get a question, a comment, by all means, chime in. I will do my very best to respond. First out the gate tonight is good friend of the show and chat moderator, the Madman. Sean O'Donnell's with us, as is Chris Lundgren, Jose Fernandez, Semper Buffo, Kevin R. Smith. Keithulu is also in the house. And I'll take a guess, the lovely and talented Miss Sarah D might also be lurking in the shadows, another of our chat moderators. So we shall see. All righty, so let's talk about our sponsor, because yes, right now, the Dispatch is being sponsored by Roll for Combat and their Year of Titans Kickstarter, which launched last week. It is well past the 750% funding mark. In this, you'll receive 13 new playable species delivered each and every month in 2025. You're going to see unique species and subspecies you can't get anywhere else. And these are extensively developed, including lore and cultural insights for these species. You're going to get ancestral feats, If you're looking at the 5e Dungeons and Dragons edition, you'll also receive new backgrounds. Regardless of edition, you'll also get over 20 tokens depicting these species in a variety of character options. And it is designed for both 5e and Pathfinder 2nd Edition. In fact, if you support the Pathfinder 2nd Edition, you'll also get a free ancestry with each of these species. You'll even have access to the development team as this continues on through 2025. So you're going to get exactly what you need to effortlessly add fantastic new playable species into your campaign. As I mentioned, this is already well past its funding mark. You can reserve your Year of Titans for either Dungeons and Dragons or Pathfinder 2nd Edition in PDF, or for the Foundry Virtual Tabletop for a $59 pledge. Or if you want to get both the PDFs and the virtual tabletop elements, you can do so for a pledge of $99 through December 12th. And delivery will begin in January. I mean, it is a Year of Titans. Wouldn't do too well to start in March, right? So there you have it. There you have it. So big thank you to our friends over at Roll for a Combat for sponsoring the Dispatch. Let's see, Tessie Trekkie, my buddy Scott Weigel from high school, is with us in chat, as is Bulligan Ojitade. I guarantee I'm not even close on that. But I do believe it is a first-time visit for them with us in chat, so welcome aboard. So Miss Sarah D says she is huddled in the shadows with her hot chocolate. There's ugly white stuff outside, and she don't like it. It's not really sticking. It's not really sticking that much. It's all right. It was pretty crappy earlier today when it was snowing here in the Chicago area. I saw some areas of the Chicago area, some areas of the Chicagoland area. Yeah, okay, Jeff. Some places in the Chicagoland area got 4 inches of snow, but it just, I think we've got a little bit that's still stuck on our deck, and that's about all. But the hell with that cold. No, thank you. I do not like cold weather. That's why I enjoyed when I lived out in Arizona for about a decade. Didn't have to deal with that too often. I mean, it would get cold. It would get under freezing in the winter at night. Rest of the time, nope. Like, it used to be pretty entertaining to call friends and family back here on like Thanksgiving. They'd be like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm hanging out by the pool before I go over to my mom's and make dinner and that." So Tessie Trekkie asks, is 4 inches a lot of snow? If it had stuck, yeah, I mean, it's a pain in the ass. But in the Chicago area, we don't start really getting overly concerned about the snow on the ground until it's about 8 inches of accumulation, I would say. So, but then again, I was in Washington, D.C. once when they got hit with some snow, and they got about an inch, and it shut the entire city down. People were abandoning their vehicles on the highways. It was nuts because they just don't have anything to deal with it. They have hardly anything as far as like salt trucks. My flight got canceled because we were at the airport and they were going to, de-ice the plane, and then they didn't. And I was like, Cthulhu says it is a big deal in Texas where people can't drive in snow or ice for squat. I was actually driving through Dallas once and it started to snow. I was like, wow, people were making a big deal about it. I was like, well, okay. Yeah, all right. Sarah D says that her brother lives in Arizona, likes to brag about the weather, especially if you're in the Phoenix Valley. Now, if you're like in Flagstaff, they get plenty of snow. Down in Tucson, Tucson's weather's okay. All right, Vorpal Bite has decided to join us in chat tonight. Let's jump on into the news, because now available in print and PDF is The Terror Beneath. Here's a scoop from Osprey Games. An investigative role-playing game of horrors, both ancient and modern, inspired by the works of Arthur Machen and powered by the Gumshoe system. Written at the dawn of the 20th century, in the depths of the countryside, cults celebrate ancient rites and hidden clearings and caverns. Beasts of legend emerge from their lairs to prey upon the unwary, and powerful beings of folklore and myth stir once more. In the urban sprawl of London and other cities, secret societies struggle for power and dominance. Rogue alchemists pursue occult ambitions, and scientists fuse modern technology with ancient mysticism to create new horrors. This is the world of The Terror Beneath, in an investigative role-playing game inspired by the works of the master of horror, Arthur Machen. It is into this world that players will step as unwitting investigators, plucked from amongst an oblivious populace by fate, malice, or blind fortune, and set against the machinations of hidden cults, the creations of mad scientists, or the unknowable motives of ancient terrors. The Terror Beneath is powered by the Gumshoe role-playing system, designed specifically to tell stories of mystery and investigation, with less emphasis on finding clues and more on interpreting them correctly. An investigation never stalls due to a critical clue being missed, but gives the heroes all the information they need to keep moving towards the horrors at the heart of the plot. This 128-page hardcover is available now. It just came out this week. Carries an MSRP of $30. You can grab the PDF alone over at Drive-Thru RPG for $24.50. And I have it right here. Actually, that wasn't a very good laugh there. That wasn't one of my macabre laughs. So yes, I actually cracked this up and started reading this last night. So stay tuned. I will have a review of The Terror Beneath very shortly. I will point out, I have never read any Arthur Machen. Now, I know that H.P. Lovecraft was a huge fan. And I have also heard that Machen is very good at setting a tone, but his stories kind of fizzle out. That there's never actually, a truly horrific end to the stories. Like I said, I've never read any. All I know is that H.P. Lovecraft held his stories in the highest regard. I also know that they were written right around the turn of the 19th century. So there is that as well. I do not want to reveal any thoughts about the game yet because just started reading it last night. I'll probably polish it off tonight because it's 128 pages. But one thing I will say is I find it pretty interesting how, strangely enough, some third-party publishers or third-party designers, maybe I should say, do a better job with the Gumshoe system than sometimes Pelgrane Press does. Kind of strange. Verbal Bite says all the Lovecraft movies are horrible. Painful to sit it out. I would say it's not a movie, but it is an episode of Masters of Horror. The Tales in the Witch House, I think, was pretty well done. It was, wasn't his name Brian Yaxa, something like that, who did like Reanimator, From Beyond. He actually directed it, but it was a little less, I guess, tongue in cheek than, it's a pretty twisted story, and it's got a pretty nasty end to it as well, which the short story does also. All right. Kathy Evans is with us, as is Daryl Arrett. Good to see you. Wallona's Cave is also popping on in. On to our next news piece. Kevin Crawford and Sine Nomine Publishing are about to enter the final stretch for the Kickstarter for Ashes Without Number. Here's what I know. Ashes Without Number is a tabletop role-playing game for the end of the world. Whether as a civil collapse, alien invasion, zombie uprising, or post-apocalyptic wasteland, the game is built to give a game master the tools they need to carve out their own special slice of hell. Isn't that nice? Special slice of hell. Campaigns set amid radioactive dunes and savage mutant perils are supported in these pages, along with near-future tales of civil collapse, global plagues, and horrific shambling hordes. Just as with all Sine Nomine games, however, the book is built to support a game master in fashioning their own personal apocalypse, building worlds and settings to explore the kind of games they want to run. Ashes Without Number is built on the same sturdy old-school game system as its sister games in the Without Number line. Whether the fantasy adventures of Worlds Without Number, the science fiction explorations of Stars Without Number, or the cyberpunk desperation of Cities Without Number, the game within these pages is built to interface smoothly with all of these resources. The old school framework also allows easy importation of other OSR games and content to help flesh out your own campaign. A classic framework of 6 attributes, hit points, saving throws, and other traditional elements is supported by genre-specific rules and tools for bringing the right flavor of ruin to the table. Gritty perils of disease, traumatic stress, lingering wounds, and starvation are pointed up for campaigns set in a tragic, near-future chaos, while Wasteland Marauders have support for mutations, scrap-built gear, and enigmatic ancient tech. These systems are built to snap smoothly into place in your campaign, letting you pick the ones that fit the feel you're aiming to create. But at its heart, Ashes Without Number is shaped around the same system-neutral Sine Nomine tools that have won the other Without Number games such a warm place in the hearts of working game masters. Tools for building adventures, ruins, survivor enclaves, looming crises, horrible mutant creatures, and a host of other useful content are all designed to be system neutral and usable with your own game of choice. Need to put on an exploration-worthy ruin into your game? Just follow these tables and guidelines to get a quick, playable chunk of gaming fun. From the site's first glance impression to the useful salvage still left amid the rubble. This Kickstarter is over 500% funded. There is no video. There normally isn't a video for the Kevin Crawford Kickstarters, I notice. You can reserve a copy of the hardcover with PDF if you live in the United States or select countries for an $80 pledge. There are some other things that are included with this that I didn't really understand reading through the pledge level, but I can tell you, you do get the hardcover and the PDF for the $80 pledge. Or if you want just the PDF alone, you can do that for a $25 pledge through November 30th. Expected delivery is November of 2025. Tessie Trekkie says, Kevin Crawford is a great fella. I have never had an opportunity to deal with Kevin Crawford. I would love to review some of his stuff. I also understand, I guess he doesn't really care about reviews, which is, fine. I mean, that's completely, his prerogative, But I also like the fact that you can pick up, it's usually like the art-free editions of his games, and I think they're trimmed down a little bit from the full, like, art-filled volumes, but they're free. They tend to be free. Wallona's Cave says Scarlet Heroes is a gem. Pete Strakulich is with us in chat, says this is a Kickstarter they'd like to jump on, but they're saving funds for Black Friday. Hey, I'll give you a Black Friday deal when we finish up the news. Something that I stumbled across. Also has to do with our sponsor, so that's kind of cool there too. All right. Anyway, Ashes Without Number looks interesting. Definitely sounds very interesting as well, especially if you happen to like pretty much any sort of post-apocalyptic role-playing. There is a fresh bundle of holding which is landed, and I've got the deets on the Engine GM Guides deal. Game Master. We've resurrected the November 2022 Engine GM Guides bundle featuring PDFs from Engine Publishing that helps improve your skill in running tabletop role-playing games. Read by the experienced game masters at the widely read game mastering blog Gnome Stew, and by many of the field's leading role-playing game designers, Engine system-neutral guides show how to prepare and run a game session, conjure interesting characters and storylines, manage an ongoing campaign, and improvise when your players gleefully destroy your game sessions, characters, storylines, and campaigns. This revised, or I should say revived, November 2022 offer once again gives you the complete 6-book Engine collection for less than the retail price of one guide. For just $9.95, you'll get all 6 titles in this revived offer's Engine collection, which has a retail value of $78. And this includes Eureka, 501 adventure plots to inspire game masters, Focal Point, the complete game master's guide to running extraordinary sessions, Masks, 1,000 memorable NPCs for any role-playing game, Never Unprepared, the complete game master's guide to session prep, Odyssey, the complete game master's guide to campaign management, as well as Unframed, the art of improvisation for game masters. These savings will run through December 4th. I have never heard of this line of books. Of course, I've heard of Gnome Stew, but I am not familiar with Engine Publishing. But I got to say, you can pick up all 6 books for less than the cost of one of them in PDF. Pretty nice. Pretty nice. And it's system neutral. So it's not as if you're like, and it seems like much of this is also genre neutral too. So could be kind of cool. Could be kind of cool. Moving right along. Already passing the 1,000% funding mark is the Adventure Conqueror King System 2 Treasure Tome. Here's the skinny. The best magic item compilations published before now, the ones truly packed with interesting and compelling items and new, exciting ideas, are still the original Advanced Dungeons & Dragons Dungeon Master's Guide, AD&D Unearthed Arcana, and AD&D Greyhawk Adventures Sourcebook. Those are the books that have inspired a million campaigns for decades. The Acts 2 Treasure Tome has more items than all of those combined. And Autarch has taken great pain to create items as fantastic, wondrous, and exciting as those classic items that inspired our childhood imagination so long ago. Inside, you'll find 483 new miscellaneous items, 103 new potions, 168 new magical implements, 115 new swords, 110 new rings, 99 new miscellaneous weapons, and 99 new sets of armor. In addition, the Acts 2 Treasure Tome is the first book that actually provides a consistent structured pricing for each item, along with the design details for making them. Some other books have tried this, but the items weren't built with a unified, coherent system, and the requirements to make items frequently didn't make sense. Never before has there been a source book that combines the extravagance and imagination of the earliest old school fantasy with the coherence, detail, and structure found in Acts 2. Like the other books in the Axe Imperial imprint product line, the Acts 2 Treasure Tome features a durable PU leather cover. I assume that's faux leather. Lay flat sewn bindings, thick art paper interiors with full color art by a team of artists led by Michael Sirigos. Probably messed up that name. My apologies. This is a high quality collectible book, majestic enough to stand out on the bookshelf and durable enough to survive the rigors of tabletop action. The Acts 2 Treasure Tome is not just a tome of treasure, it's a treasure in itself. The Kickstarter for the Adventurer Conqueror King System 2 Treasure Tome is once again over 1,000% funded. You can reserve a copy of the hardcover and PDF for a $50 pledge through November 29th. There is no pledge for just PDF. It is hardcover and PDF together. Expected delivery is November of next year. Sweet. I would like to take a peek at Acts 2. Yes, I know. People will get up, not everybody. Some people will be upset. Oh, Jeff's sharing a news piece from Autarch. Oh. Yes. I get it. I understand. But I'll tell you what. If Ginny D can discuss Adventurer Conqueror King 2, I think we're okay. I think we're all right to do it. All right? I think so. Then again, maybe that's just me. But, the first edition, it was pretty cool. It was pretty cool. Now, I had mentioned that I had reviewed it. I could have swore I did. I know I did a video with the first look, but I'm pretty sure I reviewed the core book. I'll have to dig through. I'll have to take a peek. Maybe I did a written review. Maybe for whatever reason, I did a written review. Because that was about the time where I started to just decide, I'm only going to do video. Yes. Flaming Heron's with us. Flaming Heron says, I think you do what you want, Jeff. Yeah, I do. That's why I shared this news piece. Hey, I've said it before. You know what side of the fence I am on politically. But I also come from an era where, you can't just hate the other side of the aisle. It just doesn't work. Nothing gets done. You're not going to change anybody's mind by yelling at them. So there you have it. There you have it. All right, moving right along to our last news piece. Later on this month is going to see the first release in the RuneQuest Renaissance line from Chaosium Inc. And I've got the lowdown on Sun Country. Sun Country, Prax. Sun Country is a small enclave of staunchly independent farmers. Their stubborn ways have resisted nomads, famine, and drought for centuries. Strangers are not welcome in the lands of the sun, but many are drawn there by the promise of gold, fame, and adventure. Do you dare enter the Sun Dome lands? Sun Country is a Gloranthan campaign supplement for the RuneQuest role-playing game. Actually, I want to say it was the third, isn't it? I believe. Third, yeah, I was going to say it's the third edition. It was the Avalon Hill edition. So there's that. Sun Country contains 4 scenarios ready to play. Extensive historical notes on Sun Country and its culture, profiles of important persons and peoples of the region, full descriptions of the Yamalio cult, extensive detailed encounter tables, personal notes and observations of Jaxart Wyded, commissioner of the Imperial Census, on his travels through the land. There are sundry useful and ornamental details of interest to the Gloranthan scholar. Now, I do want to point out, don't have a page count. I don't have an MSRP. This is going to be available at Dragon Meet in the UK. I think isn't that in London? Doesn't Dragon Meet take place in London? I think it does. Pretty sure it does. Now, the original came in around, I think, 128, 130 pages. So this is what I know. So this is reformatted. Well, I guess they're calling it remastered. But this is not actually updated for 6th edition RuneQuest. Or no, is it 7th edition? The newest edition of RuneQuest, which I think is 6th. My gosh, so many editions of different games. It's like, I think it's the 31st edition, I think. So this is usable with classic RuneQuest. So if you picked up the classic RuneQuest box set, or you have RuneQuest, very easily utilize this. I don't really think there have been insane changes. I mean, there have been some. But I got to be honest. I mean, now if we were talking like 1st edition RuneQuest to now, yeah, quite a bit different. I don't think 3rd to now, tons of changes. But I've also always heard very good things about this adventure campaign. So up until, probably about 2000, 2005-ish, people were still talking about this. And this came out, I think, in 92. So maybe even earlier than that. All right. So that is it for the news tonight. Of course, I was just talking about Drive-Thru RPG. Should also mention that Sun Country, to my knowledge, is going to be available as print on demand from Drive-Thru RPG. I don't think it's being printed by Chaosium. So Kevin R. Smith says it's actually 7th edition RuneQuest, but of course they just call it RuneQuest Roleplaying in Glorantha. So, yeah, so it is the 7th edition, just like Call of Cthulhu's on its 7th edition too. TCC is with us tonight asking if I'm on the left or the right. I am a liberal. I've pointed that out many times in the past. But I'm fairly central too. There's stuff on the left that I think is just absolutely insane. And there's a lot of stuff on the right that I think is absolutely insane too. So, but yes, I am liberal. And if that sends you scurrying off to the exit, don't know what to tell you. Don't know what to tell you. We try to stay away from politics here. But I mean, it happens. It pops up from time to time. It's never like the topic, but all right. Kevin King's popping on in chat. Good to see you. All right. Anywho, so Jose Fernandez says, I won't leave you, Jeff. Thank you very kindly. I appreciate that. I think the microphone is right up against this table here. Not that you would hear it because it's got some shock absorption here, but I notice it kind of jiggling a little as I am moving around. See, now it's not going anyplace. Anywho, so I was talking about Drive-Thru RPG. Don't forget, the Gaming Gang, thus the Dispatch, is affiliated with the One Bookshelf sites. So if you are going to visit Drive-Thru RPG, Storyteller Vault, War Game Vault, even Dungeon Masters Guild, please stop by thegaminggang.com. First, click on one of our banners. That way, if you happen to make a purchase, I get a small portion of that sale. And it is the newly redesigned thegaminggang.com. If you have not popped by to check it out, I have been getting a lot of very positive feedback. Not that it's radically different than it was before. I think our little review summary is different, but a lot of people are saying it's something that they're digging. They're liking it. So I'm like, okay, thank you. I'm glad, because I'd be like, wow, you guys hate it? Great. Just got to do something else now. Anyway, if you like this video, if you dig the channel, if you find thegaminggang.com to be a valuable resource, hell, if you just like what we do, you can always stop on by paypal.me/thegaminggang and make a small donation. Hell, you can buy me a 2-liter of soda. Lord, that's tasty. And there are some of you out there who swing on by paypal.me/thegaminggang and make not small donations, including our good friends of the show, the Madman, my pal Scott Weagle, Agile Monk, John Webster, and Craig Watkins. All very recently swung on by to paypal.me/thegaminggang. Big thank you to all of you out there for using those banner ads, those affiliate banners, and or stopping by paypal.me. It is much appreciated. Gleeman RX says the new website is definitely a better layout. Flaming Huron says very clean, very crisp. It wasn't terrible before, but I mean, it was the same design for about 8 years with tweaks here and there. But yeah, I thought, yeah, let's do a redesign. So, alrighty. So tonight we're going to kick off a new series for Thursday nights for the foreseeable future, as long as people enjoy this. If I don't get a lot of, feedback, I don't really see comments in the comments section, I'll assume it's not catching your interest. But what I'm looking to do is I'm aiming to build an old school influenced fantasy role-playing game from scratch. And tonight we're going to talk about attributes. I'm also going to talk a little bit about some ideas I have for action resolution and some little nuggets that I think will make this game different. Because for one, I absolutely do not want to create a retro clone. That is, I have no interest in doing that. There are tons and tons of really well done retro clones out there. What I want to do is just create something that has a nice sense of familiarity, but also have some different tweaks to it as well. Keep it rules light. The big philosophy from the OSR that I am a firm believer in is rulings over rules. So we'll get into that as well. And we're going to talk about this. We're going to talk about those attributes in just a few moments. But first, I think it's time for a brief intermission.
It's intermission time, folks. Time out for a delicious snack in our sparkling refreshment building. Every item a fresh, appetizing taste treat.
Hey, son of a gun, it's refreshment time!
Come on, come on, come on and taste the Pepsi way. Let's talk turkey. In the old days, bringing home a turkey was a problem. That was in the old days. Nowadays, set your sights on the Butterball, Swift's premium turkey label, and you're getting the best bird in the USA. Turkey that's easier to carve because most leg tendons are removed. Turkey that's broad-breasted and meatier to give you more white meat, moist and tender. Buy Butterball turkey ready to stuff or already stuffed in just the right size, completely cleaned, ready to cook. From this to this, easily the most delicious turkey you can serve. Holidays, anytime, good food comes first. Enjoy Butterball, Swift's premium turkey often. From Swift, to serve your family better.
You have any Wilkins coffee in your house? No. You know, a house isn't a home without Wilkins coffee.
During holiday travel, some people get delirious.
Taxi!
Some get delayed. And some get Del Griffin.
American Light and Fixture, Director of Sales, Shower Curtain Ring Division.
Neil Page got all three.
I was on my way home to spend a nice holiday with my family. Instead, I'm in a motel bed with a stranger.
So instead of Thanksgiving with his family, he's spending 3 days with the turkey.
Two happy clams just whistling down the road.
Flintstones, meet the Flintstones, they're the Marconi family.
Paramount Pictures presents
Wilma!
Steve Martin,
Ever been to Hawaii?
Yeah.
You see Don Ho while you were there?
See the second show. That's the best one.
Is that right?
Yeah.
John Candy,
Why are you holding my hand? Where's your other hand? Between two pillows. Those aren't pillows.
in a new film by John Hughes. Planes, trains, and automobiles.
See that Bears game last week? Yeah, hell of a game, hell of a game.
What came first, Wilkins or Kermit? And the answer is Wilkins. Wilkins was first, Kermit followed. Kind of interesting little tidbit of information there. Yes. Flaming Heron is surprised that Planes, Trains, and Automobiles doesn't get a copyright strike. The trailer doesn't. No. And yes, I made sure because I thought, okay, it's Thanksgiving. I try to do the brief intermissions if we got a holiday coming up. Try to, have something to do with the holiday. So I was like, yeah, it's one of the only movies I really can think of that's a Thanksgiving movie. Like, and it's good. I love that movie. It's one of the only movies that I still can watch, laugh my ass off at, and then cry at the end. So there is that. We got quite a few new folks popping on into chat. So we've got Off the Shelf Board Game Reviews, who's curious about the reprint of the first edition of Shadowrun, which is coming out December 12th, if I remember correctly. At least that's what distributors are saying. So keep in mind, when I tell you release dates, that's coming from distributors. That's not usually coming from publishers. Because sometimes publishers don't even know when their stuff's coming out, to be very honest. Anyway, to my knowledge, it is only the book. Now, the PDF is available now. You can get the PDF, this remaster. It's just been cleaned up. It is over at Drive-Thru RPG. If I remember correctly, I think it's $14.99 or $19.99. And to my knowledge, that's it. That's all that Catalyst Game Labs is going to be putting out, is just the first edition as a way to celebrate the 35th, I think it's the 35th anniversary, if I remember correctly, from sharing that news piece. Mateo is with us, as is Scenes by Omnic. And Darius Termina is also popping on in. Says, I mean, Thanksgiving is less movie-oriented and more family. So, yeah, that actually makes sense, not being able to think of one, really. Yeah. Mateo said, I thought it was a Christmas movie. No, they're trying to get back to Chicago for Thanksgiving. So there is that. I'll have to give that a watch. I haven't seen that in a while. And good soundtrack, too. It's got a pretty good soundtrack. All right, so let's move on to tonight's topic, because we're kicking off the new series where we're going to build an old school influenced fantasy role-playing game from scratch, from the bottom up. So let's talk about attributes. So keep in mind, I do want to still have the 6 classic attributes, still have the 3 to 18 range. But what I am interested in is, and I remember when we were talking about this previously, in fact, someone said, hey, you know what? That's why I subscribed to this channel. Maybe it was Pete Strakulich saying, I remember when you were going to look to try to, build a game. Like, that's why I subscribed. So Pete Strakulich asks, are we doing a level 0? No, we will not. In fact, I would like to not do levels. So remember, I'm not saying that this is an old school role-playing game or old school Renaissance, old school revival, old school influence. So what we're looking at is we go with our strength, dexterity, constitution, wisdom, intelligence, and charisma. Have our players roll 3d6, and then they can assign those 6 rolls to whatever they want. So they're not locked into whatever they, I rolled a 6. I want to be a fighter, but I rolled a 6 for strength, so I am stuck with that. No. But I don't want the characters to be superheroes right off the bat. And Darius Termina is talking about an action system, doing an action system. That starts getting into rules bloat. Remember, I pointed out I'm looking to do rules light, rulings over rules. So if you start using an action system where you have action points, now you're going to start getting into Pathfinder 2nd edition isn't necessarily a slog, but let's be honest, Pathfinder 2nd edition combat does not run as smoothly as it could. And it's mainly because of the players. I think it's a lot of times, granted, if you're using a virtual tabletop, you should be fine because it's going to automate everything. So like if you're using Foundry for Pathfinder 2nd edition remaster, you're in great shape because just about everything's automated there. But as far as looking at something which is an action system, you're kind of throwing away the old school influence. So, no comeliness is cool. Yeah, well, we wouldn't be doing that. And Darius Termina says, yeah, that's very true. The options are overwhelming a lot of the time. That's where you get into and there are some, and I like Pathfinder 2nd edition. I really do. I think it's very unique And if you are somebody who really wants to customize a character, that's pretty much the direction you can go in, because you can really get some very unique characters in that respect. So Keithulu says, what about personality instead of charisma? As most gamers conflate charisma with physical attractiveness. Well, the reality is, every time that you have like a rule book, it's going to explain what each of these things is. There's no skipping past that. So if you make charisma, make sure, that the explanation of charisma is going to be, social skills, personality, likability, things like that. You're not going to really get, you're not going to get too much pushback on that. Anyway, so a lot of people kind of getting way into the weeds on this. You're getting way ahead of what tonight's topic is. So what I would aim to do, and keep in mind, this is a discussion in that, but we're not voting, right? I'm just letting you know. We're not voting out, oh, well, we're going to do that, because then it'll just be a mess. It would just be a completely random mess. So the premise I'm looking at is to have a roll under as far as the action resolution. Pretty universal. So your action resolution for your strength, dexterity, so on, 20-sided die, you're rolling under, not equal to or less than. It's got to be under. Because the thing is, I do want to have I always want failure to be possible. And we do get into the Game Cats with us, says too many nerds in the chat. So what I want to see is, so even if somebody's got an 18, right? Well, guess what? There's still going to be a possibility of failure, obviously enough. What I don't want to get stuck doing is having to sit there and be working out all these, well, okay, so it's +1 for this and -2 for this and this and that, this and that, this and that. So what I would like to incorporate, see, now I like advantage and I like disadvantage. I like the concepts of them. With most role-playing games, I do not like the execution of advantage and disadvantage. In my opinion, I think, and I don't know what you folks think, I think advantage skews things way too positively, and then disadvantage skews things way too negatively. I got to be honest. I mean, if we're talking, say, like 5e, character gets disadvantage and they're a lower level character, it's going to be some tough sledding trying to do what you're looking to do. Something else that would be very important as far as a staple of these rules would be along the lines of like Mothership First Edition, which is so weird to say that, because then it's like you're implying that there's a second edition, but there's not. There's a 0 edition. That people, newcomers to the game, kind of miss, especially new game masters, is when a player does not succeed with their dice roll, that doesn't mean that they don't succeed at what they're trying to do. It's not an automatic failure. It's not a pass or fail. So it would be up to the game master. Once again, it's the rulings over rules kind of thing that we'd be looking at as far as, oh, well, Bob rolled his dexterity and he missed it by 1. Okay, you know what? Let's have Bob succeed at what he was attempting to do, but now there's a new complication. Or maybe, he was trying to quietly sneak past something and something dropped out of his, out of his pocket or bag or whatever. The guard or whatever didn't hear it. But now Bob's just realized that he had something fall out of his pocket that he needs or something, whatever, right? A complication, a challenge that needs to be overcome. As opposed to, you failed. Flaming Heron says, no real failures, just not as successful with negative results. There can be real failures because I would like to have critical failure and critical success. But what you'd be looking at is in a roll under system, it's the 1 that's going to be the critical success. It's going to be the 20 that would be the critical failure. So I was talking about advantage and disadvantage and how I like the concept of advantage and disadvantage. I hate the execution in just about every game I have seen that utilizes advantage and disadvantage. So, and Darius Termina points out that 5e's advantage and disadvantage also gets so convoluted as they cancel each other out. So a person can even have second advantage if disadvantage cancels out the first. That doesn't even count luck. Matt is joining us. Greetings from the UK. Well, hello. Welcome aboard. So anyway, this is kind of funny. Matt just said +4, -4. So this is my concept. If you have advantage, right? Remember, we're talking roll under. If you have advantage, you roll a 20-sided die plus a 4-sided die. And the result of the 4-sided die is subtracted from the 20-sided die. That's advantage. Disadvantage works the opposite way. So you roll the 4-sided die, add that to the D20 roll. So it is an advantage. It is a disadvantage, but it's not radically just insanely changing the odds. So what I would look to do, once again, as I mentioned, I don't want to be sitting there going, okay, well, this gives a +1, this is a -2, blah, blah, blah. I would look to, like, if something is difficult, it's going to get a D4 disadvantage. If it's something that's extremely difficult, it gets a D6. And you could do the same thing as far as something, something's easy. Okay, you get the advantage die. If something is really simple, but you're still rolling for it, which the reality is I wouldn't, as a game master, I wouldn't roll for something like that. But if you have to, it's a D6. If it's something that's nearly impossible, it's a D8. And that's it. That's as high as you would go with those dice, is up to a D8. And that would be very, very rarely. Something else, because I like customization of characters. I like I like people to feel like, hey, I'm really creating a unique character. And that's not something that we get to see all that often in old school Renaissance sort of game or old school revival sort of game, a retro clone. And I get it. I enjoy where it's like, okay, well, the backstory of my character is based upon their adventuring, not this elaborate story that I've come up with prior to actually showing up at the game table. Now I'm ready to play, and now I expect my game master to figure out a way to shoehorn my backstory into the adventure they've got planned. No, I don't mean that either. Right? So here's the thought process. Keywords or tags. So we have our classes, and we also have our races. And we would have things like, oh, okay, so dwarves, you know, I know the old school Renaissance is the dwarves can smell gold. I would tweak that to, okay, dwarves can sense, you know, when they're underground or whatever, gold, gems, things like that. Not that they smell it. Ooh, that's certainly 24 karat. I mean, that always thought kind of odd. But what we have is we have our classes. The classes would have keywords. And the keywords give you an advantage when you're doing things related to that. So, as an example, and keywords are very easy to create. You know, you're just sitting there going, okay, off the top of my head. So as far as like magic with mages, we're not looking at Vancian magic. Probably something along the lines of you have mana points or whatever based upon intelligence or wisdom. So if we're looking at arcane magic or divine magic, magic's probably one of the more complicated stuff. Pete Stranglitch is like, who's writing this down? I know that was probably a little more in your face than I meant. Bradley Thorpe is with us in chat. Says, hey, Jeff, I've got a question for you. What do you think is a core problem with Wizards of the Coast? What do I think is a core problem, or what do I think is the core problem? I'll real quick, because that's not our topic tonight. And, you know, I'm not, like I said last night, I'm not here to shit on Wizards of the Coast. So I had somebody over on Blue Sky. They were like, oh, yeah, you know, good. They were implying that the title of last night's video was like real clickbaity, which it wasn't. You know, it's like, is now the time to leave D&D in the past? Could have thrown that out there all the time, right? So they're like, oh, well, and it was like, it's kind of like, I don't know you. You don't know me. I don't know why you went out of your way to comment on the post for the show. And it's just like my news pieces are on social media. It's just, you know, here, oh, it was posted on the gaminggang.com. There you go. Daryl says root cause for them is 5e superheroes with fantasy tropes. See, if I looking at the issue I see with, because you know, some people love that. I mean, you know, I grew up with gritty sword and sorcery. I grew up, you know, with Fafhrd and Grey Mouser and Conan the Barbarian. And it's kind of funny because like early Conan stories, I mean, Conan's never, as a character, Conan was never written like he's portrayed like in Marvel Comics or with Arnold Schwarzenegger. He's supposed to be more of a Tarzan physique, not some hulking giant, right? But the issues I see with Wizards of the Coast releases, and remember, I'm not going to see the new Dungeon Master's Guide or probably the Monster Manual either. The problem I see is that there is no unified vision. There's no unified vision. There's no overall game plan outside of how can we make the most money? I've said it before. If Hasbro could get away with slapping swastikas on toys, thinking they would sell more, they would do it. You know, right? I mean, they're a soulless corporation. I'm not trying to say that Wizards of the Coast, those folks are soulless, but they do have to answer to Hasbro. And Hasbro is a company that really only worries about its shareholders, like most companies. So, like I said, the issue I've got with the stuff that's been coming out from Wizards of the Coast, although, like I said, I like the player's handbook. I gave it an 8 out of 10. Would I gravitate towards Dungeons and Dragons? No, I wouldn't. The Dungeons and Dragons is not the current iteration, and the new 5.5 iteration are not my go-to fantasy role-playing games. They just aren't. Mechanically, I still think that there are just problems with it. And there's just far too much that is rules bloat in 5e. And then at the other end, there's so much stuff that's just left up to the dungeon master to figure out. Anyway, but I think the big problem with Dungeons and Dragons and Wizards of the Coast is they don't have many people who work on D&D full time. They just don't. And I know there have been people out there, content creators out there who are like, oh no, Jeff, you're wrong, man. There's like 100 people who work full time on D&D. And it's like, no, that is not correct. There may be a dozen employees of Wizards of the Coast who 100% of the time they work on Dungeons and Dragons. There are hundreds of freelancers working for Wizards of the Coast. And that's the problem that we see with many of the recent releases over the past few years is it's just a jumble. There's nothing unifying it. And I know you've got lead designers and stuff like that. It's just all over the place. And I'll use a great example. And granted, this is an offshoot of Dungeons and Dragons, but it's right behind me. The Tales of the Valiant Game Master's Guide. There's got to be like 25 authors. And Celeste Konowich is the lead designer. And I'll tell you what, it's uniform in its approach. Can you tell it was not a single author? Yes. But it's fantastic. That's not what we see from D&D. And the other thing, as far it's the lack of quality, also because of so many cooks in the kitchen, I guess, is also that we don't have like a sous chef overseeing them correctly. But anyway, so that's it. Anywho, back to what our topic is. So as far as the classes, like I was going to say, so as an example, like a mage, we'll have these different keywords. So as characters gain experience, they spend their experience. This is kind of lifted from like Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay. So you can spend on purchasing new keywords, leveling up the keywords that you have, and also increasing your attributes. So with most role-playing games where you've still got your 3 to 18 range and it's roll under or it's roll equal to or less than, remembering it is roll under. I would almost consider, would it be more interesting if a critical failure would be rolling that exact number? So if you had like a 14 and you roll a 14, that's your critical failure. It's a thought. It's an idea. So most games where it's roll under and you have those ranges of 3 to 18, the player can roll after the end of an adventure. It's usually pick 1, 2, or 3 attributes and roll a 20-sided die. And if you roll higher than the current score, then you get to increase it by a point. And one of the reasons why I like the roll under, even if we're talking roll equal to or less than, is it means each and every point of your attribute is important. Whereas if we look at derivatives of 5e, they're not. So if you have, off the top of my head, it's like 9 to 12, there's no difference between having a 9 or a 12 or 9 to 11, whatever it is that gets you 0 as far as your bonus. Whereas the difference between an 11 and a 9 in a roll under, that's a pretty big difference. So that's one of the reasons why I like the rolling under or less than or equal to or less than. So as far as experience would go, the players would be able to spend experience at the end of an adventure. So I don't know about you, but if it's a longer adventure, yes, I could see it. If it's an ongoing campaign. But if it's a low-level dungeon delve, to me, it's just weird that suddenly the characters would like improve and jump a level in the middle of a dungeon, right? So, I mean, it's sort of like, but if we're using the spend the experience points, then you're looking at actually being able to allow your players at the end of a session to look to improve their attributes by a keyword. So an example with the mage, one keyword could be focused. And if that mage is focused, they get an advantage when casting a spell. I don't want a magic system where you have automatic success. To me, that's boring. I want more of a swords and sorcery vibe, but I don't mind the epic magic, right? I don't mind the high fantasy. So give people pretty much a choice. If they want to go more for a low fantasy sort of role-playing game, they can. If they want to go all out with, epic fantasy, they could do that as well. Flaming Heron said, also need to have pay for it and set aside time to do it. Daryl said, boils down to those bonuses. So that's why I thought, like I said, the advantage, I like the advantage. I like disadvantage. I just don't like how it's ever implemented in any of these games. And so as an example, if you were using, let's say you're a ranger and your character has a keyword of woodsman or woodswoman or person, whatever, and they're tracking someone, that could fall under the woodsman. Or we're looking at, no, that doesn't. The woodsman is more along the lines of survival in the wild or not getting lost in the wild. So having a keyword gives you advantage. Now, if you're doing something you've already got advantage, it's just going to bump up that die. Like I said, I want something that's got an old school vibe to it, but is not an old school retro clone. Flaming Huron says they make their players have to do something to level besides just assign points. That's normally, well, like as an example, like say you've got magic users who want to learn new spells. They're not just going to automatically learn new spells. Kind of like Dungeon Crawl Classics. The other thing, as far as we put this together, as we do that, we're going to be cribbing from other role-playing games. Of that, there is no doubt. So, like as an example, I like the Black Hack and the like supply of things being a die. So it's like, oh wow, you got loads of rations. Well, then you've got a D10. And if you roll like a 1 or a 2, it drops down to a D8. And then the next time you use your rations, you roll that D8. And if you get a 1 or a 2, it goes down to a D6. I like that a lot because to me, nothing's more boring. And oh, okay, so we've had combat encounters over now. Okay, let's see. Oh, you're gonna go retrieve your arrows. You're gonna go retrieve your sling stones, your sling bullets. Matt asks, Fancy and Magic? No. No. What you would be looking at is, and once again, more keywords, right? Because I think to me, the keywords, tags, whatever we want to call these, is something that gives the players the opportunity to really customize your character into the sort of character they want it to be. And you could be able to purchase keywords from other classes. And then we could also have just general keywords like perceptive or something where we would have gregarious or whatever. I mean, okay, so perception would give you a bonus trying to notice things, trying to overhear something. I personally think it'd be very cool. And it moves away from the, at this level, my character gets to do this. And then at this level, I get to unlock these things. And then at this level, I get to do this. And now I want to multi-class. So now I'm going to go over to, it's just too much work, right? Whereas if you're sitting there and you're like, okay, so you're a warrior and you want to be an archer. Okay, well, your keyword is bows or ranged, right? So now, okay, anytime you're using a ranged weapon or a bow, whatever, then what we're looking at is you get advantage in those attacks. Something else would be that there's no armor class that you would be, I would say you're probably looking to, I guess we could look at it like, we're getting a little too far into the mechanics and that. I just wanted to talk about like attributes tonight, but I don't want armor class. I mean, there will be armor, but armor will do, or, scales, whatever monsters would have, things like that. It's not going to make them more difficult to hit. It'll just absorb damage, which is what armor does, right? It doesn't make Somebody in a suit of plate mail isn't harder to hit. Probably actually easier to hit with a melee weapon. It's just, are you going to be able to find the chink in the armor or, the opening in the armor to actually do damage? And the reality is, plate mail, you could get your ass kicked in plate mail. Maybe not in Dungeons and Dragons and that, but in real life, a well-placed shot, hit from a mace or a flail could do you up pretty good. Daryl says armor is damage reduction, one of D&D's biggest mechanical problems. Yeah. Flaming Aaron says it might be an adventure in itself. Yes. And that's kind of how Dungeon Crawl Classics tries to play it off too, is when your characters level up, that, magic users and that, if, they got to go find somebody to teach them the spells, and you could make it into a quest or make it into an adventure, things like that. Indarius Terminator asks, will the attribute stats be divided by mental and physical? Other similar divisions? We're looking at just going with our traditional strength, dexterity, constitution, intelligence, wisdom, and charisma. So, and of course, intelligence won't be, lower intelligence means that the character is stupid. It's just that character may not process information as quickly as others do. Pete Drakulich asks, would everyone have a secret keyword in the form of a weakness? It's possible, of course, that we could do things like that, where we have keywords that, rather than giving somebody an advantage, would actually give them a disadvantage. So the only thing would be, now I could see, something as far as during the adventuring would happen, which would shackle somebody with something like that. Like a keyword pariah, Agility's fine. The reality is we can change the names of the attributes. But then the funny thing is, if doing that, you'll tend to have people criticize the fact that, dexterity wasn't good enough for you. Yeah, because I've seen it. I've seen people complain about role-playing games when they've changed their attribute's name, which it's still the same. Be like, really? Really? You know how people are. You know how gamers are. Hector Stafford's with us saying, I wish that armor was better in most role-playing games. We would probably be looking at something along the lines of damage absorption. Plus, we would also not have just massive hit point bloat. And that is one of the reasons why you're looking at combat takes so long in Dungeons and Dragons. And like Pathfinder 2nd Edition, things like that. And it's because of the hit point bloat. Like, the dragons obviously got to have 300 hit points. Not really. That dragon could maybe have 35 hit points. But its scales are going to absorb a hell of a lot of damage. So maybe you would need to get a critical hit in order to really lay out some damage. We would maybe do combat where it's like critical hits, ignore armor, something like that. I don't want to start getting into critical hit charts all that stuff. Remember, we're shooting for rules light. Even with the keywords, talking about the keywords, that level 1 keyword is a D4. Advantage is a D4. Disadvantage, a D4. If you level up your keyword, which of course, having it jump up to, say, the D6 isn't going to be cheap. So once again, we're not looking at, for one, we won't have levels, so we don't have to worry about that. But I also don't want like the equivalency of 20th level characters. Because the reality is that most players can barely run a 5th level character. You push them into higher levels where they have all these various different options. So Chris Lundgren says, I like the idea of lower hit point skill for players as well. I like it to be risky. Pete Strakulich is asking about exploding dice, like for damage. We can maybe look at something like that. That's a possibility. Matt says, attack 15 armor. 10, you need to roll a 5 or under. I'm not sure where Matt's going with that. I'm thinking, once again, we're trying to stay rules light. What we would probably be looking at is your strength is essentially, for melee, is your to hit. Now, if you've got some keywords that give you the boosts, the additional die, excellent. That's fine. But we want to just kind of try to stay with a core mechanic. So like saves, right? I don't mind having saves, but the saves would be a strength save, intelligence save, wisdom save, constitution save. So poisons, running out of air, things like that. There you're looking at, obviously enough, that's a constitution save. Spells that would, look to control you, or anything like that's going to mess with your thinking process, right? It's a spell where makes you attack your allies and stuff like that. Those kind of things that would require an intelligence save. And you could even start working things in where, okay, so if it was like a high level mage versus a lower level, a low level mage, then you're looking at maybe saves are at a disadvantage. Like I said, just some ideas, but what we're looking at here is essentially the attributes. So to boil it down, we're looking at 6 attributes, pretty much our standard stuff. We can play with the names. That's fine. It's going to be roll under. Rolling equal or higher is going to be a failure. I am kind of considering if you rolled the exact number, that's the critical failure. But for ease of use, I think it's just probably better to do a 20. And it doesn't matter if you've got advantage, disadvantage, whatever. A natural 20 would be a critical failure. A natural 1 would be a critical success. And the reality, too, is just, once again, trying to do rulings rather than rules. If you're looking to achieve something and you are actually checking against your attribute to do it, and you rolled a 1, well, then you did it spectacularly well. And if you rolled a 20, it'd be like, well, you really blew that. Maybe you've, sprained a pinky or something, whatever. So that's what we're kind of looking at as far as the attributes, and have our core mechanic is a D20. Rolling low is good, rolling high is bad. And then having various advantage and disadvantage as a 4-sided die, 6-sided die, 8-sided die. We could incorporate that in a lot of different ways. We would have a smaller hit point base for characters. And we would also have a smaller hit point base for monsters and NPCs and things like that. Because it used to be that we had the design philosophy, from what I understood, was that, and this is even with 5e Dungeons and Dragons, that the design philosophy for published adventures from Wizards of the Coast was that each of your combat encounters should be resolved in about 3 rounds. That doesn't happen. All right. So, Keith Lewis says maybe rolling equal triggers a complication. That could be a possibility. Yeah. I mean, that would be just like, I kind of thought to myself, hey, if they rolled the exact number that they've got, like say they've got a 13 and they roll a 13, then it'd be like, well, that's actually a success, like really good success. But then I started thinking to myself, you know what? I want a much higher chance of failure, even if somebody is, an expert, because anything that's really difficult to achieve, there's got to be a chance of failure. Indarius Terminus is boringly short fights. All depends. All depends. I'll tell you one thing that I do also like is I do like the concept of your monsters for a game master, that your monsters have a little table, like 1 through 10, just like we have with Dragonbane, that you roll on to see what they're doing in combat. Not saying that we have to have 10 options, right, for each monster, but yeah, I kind of like that. Because in one way, it frees up the game master. Game master doesn't have to sit there all the time like, okay, so what are these goblins going to do? Right? So anyway, so there are some ideas for our first time out. If you like the concept, by all means, say so in the comment section of the video. And if you like the thought of this as an ongoing series, let me know in the comment section as well. Because, I mean, if people are like, that sucked, this is boring, I don't want to, who gives a shit? I mean, then I'm not going to devote a show every week to it. It's not like we'd be doing 100 shows about it anyway, but. All right. So that's it for this time out. If you like the video, by all means, please give it a quick thumbs up. Subscribe to the Gaming Gang channel if you haven't already. And if you do subscribe, don't forget, ring that bell. It'll not only let you know when the Dispatch streams live Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, although next Thursday's Thanksgiving, there will not be a show next Thursday at 7 p.m. Central right here on YouTube. It'll also let you know when I share other videos, such as my upcoming review of The Terror Beneath from Osprey Games. Of course, when you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to visit gaminggang.com for all the latest in tabletop gaming news, reviews, and a whole lot more you are not going to find here on YouTube. You know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. Big thank you to our sponsor, Roll for Combat, and their Year of Titans Kickstarter, which runs through December 12th. If you have not taken a peek, give it a look. So if you're watching live, thank you very much. If you watch live, took part in chat, an even bigger thank you, because not only are you keeping me company, you're keeping each other company as well. But of course, I know a lot of folks out there, they don't have an opportunity to watch live. Doesn't matter if you're watching live or on Memorex. Thank you kindly for watching any of the over 2,100 videos here on the channel. Enjoy the rest of your week, your weekend. I'll be back next Tuesday. And once again, I'm Jeff McAleer. Thank you very much for watching. Until I see you next time, I certainly hope all of you get to enjoy plenty of great gaming with your gang.